Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to BAM Sports TV. Thank you for joining. As you reach people, remember hit the like button, subscribe, share with your friends. This afternoon we'll be having a conversation with the CEO, of the PFJL, Mr. Owen Hill. Everyone would have seen what happened last season in the Premier League, especially at the playoff stage of the competition. And so, before the start of this season, heard about some changes in terms of the format and, new things on the horizon. So who better to have a conversation with than the CEO of the PFJL, who is in charge of the marketing and commercialization of the Premier League, Mr. Owen Hill. So we're just going to get straight into it. Mr. Hill is here. Good afternoon, Owen.
Yeah, man. Afternoon, Brian. And afternoon to the followers and the subscribers of the channel.
Yeah, and thank you for taking the time out of your day as well, to be on the platform. This was like short notice. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come here and have a conversation. And hopefully, at the end, we will all learn some more things or get clarity on some things that needs clarity on. So yeah, thanks again.
Yeah, man, not a problem. I mean, we're here to do that. That's essentially what our job is. So we're up for the task.
How are things with you and your family? We had a hurricane recently. How did that affect you and your family?
No, my family is good. I mean, we were without electricity for quite a couple of hours, I would say. I mean, it didn't. No, it did it actually go to a day? Regardless, I mean, we're good, to be honest. I mean, there was nothing outside of the norm. We've had our fair share of experiences during hurricane periods, and we're thankful for the fact that we're on the other side of it now. And again, condolences for all of those on the negative end. I mean, I know on the southern western belt, St. Elizabeth, some parts of Clarendon, places like that, they're still rebuilding because it struck them really hard. So most recently, I was talking to one of the club members from Treasure Beach FC, and he's saying that they're building back. So condolences for those, and we support you in times of need. But outside of that, we're good. We're good. The hurricane didn't really affect us.
Okay. Happy to hear that. I have some family in St. Elizabeth too, who are still without electricity and stuff. So
there you go.
You understand? I mean, impact.
Yeah, and it's one of the more difficult things to operate without, in our modern era. So we know that we know generally how those things affect people. So we hope and pray that infrastructural wise, things become normal sooner than later.
Yeah, definitely. So let's get straight into it. Last season JPL was seen by most as probably one of the most successful staging, especially after you reach the playoff stage. I think that is when like your team kind of took over in terms of the marketing. By and large, throughout the season, the clubs were the ones who were handling the marketing and production of games and stuff. Could you first tell me why is it that you switched from that model to this model than you did the previous seasons where you would host the games and the clubs would just turn up and participate?
So I mean, historically, if you look at the genesis of the PFJL and how it started, it really began during the period of COVID. So what you found was centralized games benefited all. We had to curtail the spread, so the games were played in one central location, which made it easier for everything, marketing, productions, etc. However, football is a community sport, especially in Jamaica. The teams are aligned to communities. So as we open back up the economy, then more and more those opportunities came up. So you found that the clubs got an opportunity to play back in their domiciled spaces. Now, who knows those spaces better than the clubs? And it's really on behalf of the clubs you're operating. So Calls were made by the clubs to say they want to get back some autonomy in operating their games, and we yielded to that because we knew that it's always a partnership, and we are here to enable every club and every community that supports a club.
Would you say that the shift this season to back to the, well, I guess the original model, pre-COVID, would you say it has enhanced the league, or you felt your model would have done better in terms of the centralized games and the whole production of things?
Well, to be honest, I mean, I'm not about trying to determine what would have worked. There is a strategy that guides the organization, and essentially what we want is all clubs to become financially viable. And I said that right now, right here, because if you understand at the core of the philosophy that clubs are to be financially viable, it then means that clubs are to operate as a business. How does that translate into what they're currently doing? Then they need the right capabilities, they need the right infrastructural support, and they need the opportunities. So having the games at the home venues or the venues of the choice of the clubs, with the standards that are still in place, or we try to maintain those standards as far as possible, I think is a step in the right direction. You know, whether or not that yielded positive outcomes, I believe because we're moving in the right direction, then the outcomes are always going to be positive.
Okay. In terms of the marketing of games, I know that you guys do a very good job in terms of getting games out there and making it more visible and creating a buzz around it so people want to come. But by and large, there are sometimes when you look at some games, even televised games that were held this season, you didn't get the feeling as if people were too energized in going out to games. Do you think there's anything that your group or your body could have done to assist the clubs, or is there any plan to do anything to assist them in terms of improving on the marketing of games to the fan base?
Well, first you have to understand your fan base. That's the first thing. Um, what we are doing is enabling the clubs by and large to strengthen their ecosystem, and then once they do that, then it becomes a snowball effect. I mean, people have choices, and you know the fact that they have choices, it then means that um, you have to have an allure. Something must be there about your organization, about your event, to allow for people to want to come and support you. There's no mandatory requirement for supporter just to always show up, you know. What we have done is also created as much brand equity as possible. So when a host club decides that they want to host a game, the equity should be strong enough that they can build on it, you know, for it to become a parachute for them. The internal capabilities from club to club differ. Some clubs have a stronger marketing and commercialization strategy, while others are not as equipped. So what we try to do is to provide guidance on all levels for all clubs. But at the very least, we provide that enabling support. All games are highlighted. You know, the standards are shared across all the games. And we try as best as possible to get people coming to support. Um, the reality is, you know, when you have that many games and you have a economy that may be struggling in some instances, and again, people have choices, it becomes a little bit more difficult to see hardcore fans filling the stadium week in, week out. However, it is still our ambition. We want to always push, and we're trying to tweak our model every single day to get more people supporting local football.
Yeah. One of the things I saw in the at the finals and predominantly across the playoff games, you had a lot of engagements from the sponsors where they set up their booths, they come out, they meet people, they sell products, they give samples and those stuff. Do you think that's something that could have been done more throughout the regular season, or it wasn't possible?
Um, I mean, again, is the law of economics, demand, supply. Um, they're gonna assess when is the best time to execute, where's the highest number of engagement, and they always do that. We encourage them from week in, week out. I mean, you have partners now who do it every single game. For example, Excelsior. Whenever there's a game and Excelsior pull-ups, they always ensure that enough product sampling is there. So, there are different companies that offer different services when you think about it. Some companies will not be showing up week in, week out because they just don't have the bandwidth. And we understand that. So we're very strategic about what we're doing, and we're building the sustainability of this organization and by extension the club. So for sustainable growth to happen, then you need to dig down first and then you build up.
Okay, okay. Another thing that I'd like to touch on is, many times people would complain about, like, well, the fans too, and sometimes even the people who watch the game on the TV, they complain about um, televised games not being televised, and some teams getting more televised games than others. Um, do you have any input into how that is structured, or that's something that the television sponsors take care of themselves?
Now, man, the clubs have full autonomy in how a lot of the televised games are done. Again, if you understand the core of any commercial deal from a viewership perspective, your television partner will want to get the highest viewership. What that means is a combination of factors. Either the quality on the field is good, or the environment is of such where it facilitates nice fan engagement, or a combination of both. So the vibe must be right, the quality of play must be high, and the general engagement. That's what the television partners want, because that will allow people to click on their channel more or to go on the app more. um, in terms of the decision of the games, the clubs ultimately decide. Um, Again, it's a democratic process. So games are selected um, with a number of factors considered, and as a result of that, you may have seen more teams getting more televised games because some teams chose not to have televised games, whether it be them not having the right infrastructure, or they're just so in their minds, the trade-off is better in their mind, having a game played at their home venue. So, we look at that as always challenges for growth, but what is growth without challenges? That's really what builds it. So we expect for it to be an equitable shift this year. If the conversations are had earlier and the agreements are also in place from both the club and the broadcaster level and the schedule level, a number of things have to be considered. But the expectation is that there will be more equity. So you'll get a chance to see more teams, and hopefully throughout the season, all the teams that get a chance to play a televised game excite the television audience.
Yeah, another thing as it relates to televised games. I know, and in terms of the scheduling, I know that like night football is probably preferred most by our Jamaican audience. But there that comes with some limitations based on the own resources of the clubs and just what exists in Jamaica. So I know that like in Clarendon, there are no night games can be held there. In Saint Anne, who I think have probably one of the largest following in terms of supporting a team, and they are one of the more successful teams, but they cannot play games in the night. Is there anything that the PFJL will be doing or have been doing to help those clubs from those regions to improve their facilities so that they can be able to host night games? because I think it would benefit the ecosystem in general, similar to how people come out in numbers in Kingston. I think if night games are played in those areas, it's possible that you will get similar support.
Yeah, man. So we agree, and our approach is always partnering with the necessary resources. So, yes, there's plans to try to implement lights in these central venues within the island. So if you say Saint Anne, it's serving the north, and if you're saying, Clarendon, it's serving at least two clubs. Um, but as you can appreciate, these are all capital expenditure items that are massive projects, um, which, over a period of time need to be providing a return on investment. Um, there are some ownership challenges that would allow for a slow process in trying to implement, because a lot of the venues are not necessarily owned by the clubs. So again, if you try to reinvest in those organizations, then that's pretty much pumping funds without any real understanding of a return. And it's very unlikely that something like that will happen. But having said all that, I've said, yes, there are considerations, and the clubs themselves are putting things in place to facilitate games that are probably not fully all night, but closer to evening into night, so that it facilitates more fans in the venues.
Okay. As it relates to this season that's coming up now, will we be seeing any new sponsors, or have you retained all the sponsors that you had last season?
Sponsorship sales is going pretty solid. I mean, again, as you can appreciate, we have to understand the limitations of the space. So, there's the universe of sponsors are static. You don't have too many large organizations being able to dole out. And if they do, football is just one of the areas that they partner. So, you have different organizations, different associations, different sporting bodies, um, pretty much clamoring for the same resources. So it's an ongoing process. We always try to show value. So I mean, we're working in the background all the time, with an understanding that once we are bettering our best, then we're moving in the right direction. So I would say yes, we're going well, um, and looking to pick up even further as we go closer to the season.
Okay. So yeah, okay. So it's possible that it is possible now, based on your own views, that we'll have the sponsor that we had last year and probably get some new ones, or you can't say that at this time.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I mean, it would be a little bit, unwise if you were a partner last year and saw what we did to not want to be a partner this year, because the kind of mileage that you get and the brand equity that you would, garner from being a part of the organization and its ecosystem is surreal. However, we're not trying to, you know, we're not trying to assume that everybody must come back, but we would love for that to happen. So we're always having those conversations and trying to understand even the partners, what is it that they want and how we can support them.
Okay. At the start of last season, we had a boom El Clasico, or like something like a preseason pre-game between Arnett Gardens and Waterhouse. I thought that was well executed. You had a lot of people that is looking forward to it this year. Will you be having that or any similar preseason kickoff?
We're looking at preseason games, but in terms of what it is called and who is our title, then that really comes down to the brands. It's not a given. It's not something that is just natural all the time. The teams are there for sure. Again, we have to be considering a different setup, just for argument's sake. I mean, in real terms, which again most people may not know, but you are providing a platform for them to understand. Arnett Gardens, for argument's sake, is currently engaged in CONCACAF or CFU tournaments with the hope of transitioning into CONCACAF, which those games are within that early preseason period. If that's the case, then it may be unwise to have a preseason game of that caliber just before, because they're in competition mode, and it might endanger players, etc. So heavy considerations are always there. Again, we've built the brand in such a way that it is transferable. I mean, conversations have gone to the extent that who knows, we may have these games just standalone within the season as special events. So the considerations are always there, but the aim is to always get more commercial value out of the product, and then by extension the clubs benefit from it.
Okay. I saw someone mention something in the comments about end of run games. I know that in the past, before the PFJL era, I think during that time it used to be the PLCA. There was a format where they would play like something like a mid-season final or an end of round final between the top clubs. Do you think that that's a way in which you could generate some more revenue and fan excitement outside of the playoffs?
Definitely, a consideration must be given, but we need to also appreciate what the format means. We're not just trying to rush and, pretty much devalue the product by just doing every and anything. As it is now, we need to have a certain number of games that will allow the players to be competitive at the global or the regional level rather. Again, having an end around final would definitely enhance the property value, but at the same time, is that something that the clubs will feel comfortable wanting to play? Those are conversations that need to be had. So we are not trying to say, oh, you must play it. Because if a club decides that they're not comfortable having that, and then, there's no real example of something like that happens elsewhere, you, the fans, you same one, the same people who are here, they'll probably say, what kind of stupidness is that? They don't see that elsewhere. So we're very mindful of those things. We're very, very mindful, and we try to stay as best as possible.
Okay. So for you earlier, well, there's talks around clipping on TVJ that the organizers are, well, I guess the organizers, the JFF, is looking to enhance the league, make it longer. Are your team, is your team involved in that negotiation or that conversation, or that's just something that's going to happen and then you guys will fit in?
No, man, we're a part of the conversation. Again, we're here to help market and commercialize the league. So structurally, there are roles and responsibilities for different members within the organization. GFF is required to provide competitions oversight and directive. PFJL is the marketing and the commercialization. So the conversations are collaborative, I can tell you, and the decisions will also be collaborative.
Okay. Looking back at last season, is there anything that you felt you could have done differently to enhance the product, and you were probably looking to change going into this season?
Differently. There are things that we could have tweaked or can tweak going forward, but I wouldn't necessarily change anything about last season. There are things that we would want to be different. Would love to have better fields. Would love to have stronger fan bases. Would love to have better teams exhibiting top talent week in, week out. But those are things that are relatively outside of our control. So The ones that are in our control is the game day execution and what the look and feel of this brand is, or the other brands that we try to represent. So we definitely are always looking to improve. So we're not comfortable. I mean, regardless of the outcome, and we have a board of directors that really has a very high standard. They try to set a high standards. So um, yeah, last season was a learning curve again. Learned a lot, and then we try to implement those things that we learned in the season to come.
Earlier this season, well, towards the end of the season, at the end of the season, when we had international competitions, the World Cup qualifiers, and the Copa America, we had 8 players from the JPL who were a part of the 2 World Cup qualifiers squad. Most of them, I think, got mates. And then we had 3 players that were from the local league that also made it in the Copa America squad. As a person who is involved with the whole marketing and commercialization and giving exposure to the league and involved actively in the running of the league, how did that make you feel or made your team feel?
Proud for sure. I think that's massive. If we set a target where at least 5 local-based players should always be in and around the national team. Um, Again, if you think about it, that's really outside of our control. However, we provide them with a platform that enable talent to be seen and developed. So, what it speaks to is the coaching education. It speaks to also, the belief in the talent that exists. I believe there's a strong golden generation being built for Jamaica's football right now. Um, and as a result of that, you find that players are breaking through earlier than normal, and they're getting greater exposure and opportunities.
Okay. Another thing that has come up in terms of the whole football space is the frequency in which when players leave to go overseas, they normally return. Sometimes it's due to opportunities. Sometimes we have various things that happen in terms of the football world that will cause a person to lose out on a contract or to be terminated at the end of the season. But one of the things that many people argue is that the players are not being developed enough to be able to succeed in those markets. Do you think there's anything that your group, as in the PFJL, can do, to help the clubs, especially in terms of holistic development of the players, not just on the football pitch, but mannerism, interviews, because sometimes you watch the JPL and you see the players go for interviews and there's a lot left to be desired. Do you think there's anything that your team could do, like some development of the players in order for them to be able to thrive when they go into those environments?
For sure. I mean, once there's a challenge, there's always an opportunity for involvement. What we must be very clear about, Brian, is a lot of the gaps that we have identified, that you have identified, that many other people have identified, starts way earlier than the Jamaica Premier League or at this level. So if there's a collective approach from the club, from the schools, from the communities, then you'll find a better outcome. For sure, we're always looking at ways that we try to develop the holistic athlete, but we believe that it needs to be a coordinated, concerted effort. So, I mean, it's very easy to say, hey, let's do a seminar, etc., but reinforcement of learning is what is most important. And we always try to say, so essentially what we have done is we have pretty much piloted a project where 50 grassroots coaches will be provided with the relevant technical expertise year over year through an an agreement at the Real Nefi JFF level. Now, what that will do is allow for more coaches to be equipped so that they can impart the knowledge at a broader base. And as they move through the ranks with more coaches being educated and qualified and providing that strong ecosystem, then the players will become better technically, better psychologically, better physically, better emotionally. When you get to the Premier League level, which is oftentimes, you know, early 20s throughout, um, it becomes a little bit harder because the product is expected to be at the final stages then and there. So it's hard to course correct at that level. However, we still try to put things in place, systems in place. As you'd have seen, we've inked a partnership with Malta recently to develop the holistic talent at the U17 level, starting also with a pilot project with 4 clubs. Um, we expect to extend that further, and we expect that those players who are a part of that U17 will at some point, whether it be a year or two, become a senior player, and that cycle will be stronger as they go through the process. So yes, we are doing things, and yes, we always look at training and developmental opportunities. And what we believe is, let's train some trainers so that they can become future trainers. We're not trying to house the information in one location so that it becomes difficult to disseminate. Everybody should have the information and consistently be regurgitating it to their own teams, their players, their units, everybody.
Yeah, I saw some information regarding the U17 pilot development program in Malta. I noticed that there are only 4 clubs. Could you explain to us why only 4 clubs and what's the sustainable plan for that project going forward?
Yeah, well, we start with 4 clubs because it's a pilot. I mean, you never start a pilot with all your support personnel. Again, it's also a function of finance. So, what it requires to engage 14 is a lot less than what it takes to engage 4. Um, Malta had a vision. We also had a vision, and we wanted to prove the concept to everybody. So that's how really 4 were selected. And amongst the clubs, they selected themselves. So it was done internally, and they selected who would have been the first pilot group, and that's how the 4 were selected.
Okay. I have a question from Jam PL fan. He is asking, what about the return of the knockout competition? I don't know if it has to be named the Link Cup, but clearly.
Yeah, well, a knockout competition is necessary, um, but we have to treat it as a brand separate, and it also requires more than just what you believe. Oftentimes people assume that running a competition is, relatively easy, but there are several considerations, i.e., funding, um, additionally, who is incorporated, the teams, do they have the infrastructure to support it? A lot of things have to be considered. So, yes, there's always the expectation that a knockout competition will be played. The realities are we just need to have more football. However that looks, whether it be knockout, league, special games, whatever that looks like, we just need to have more games at higher quality.
Okay. I know that currently now the PFJL only focuses on the Premier League, and as I said, the pilot under 17 that was started. Are there any? I know that there was some time ago that this argument was circulated about the PFJL being responsible for Tier 2 and Women's Premier League and stuff like that. Are those projects, I would say, are a part of your purview now or probably in the future in terms of marketing?
No, it's not. But no, it's not. You're absolutely right. The Premier League at its current domain, and we're looking at the U17, but um, the conversation can always extend to football in the country. The key is that we're providing the skill sets and the framework. So whoever it is that requires the management of anything can have a good cadre of people. So the remit is always having quality football in all the jurisdictions. So the tier two at the different parish levels, wherever it is, once there's a need to support and in real ways, then PFJL stands ready for that.
Okay, as we mentioned, tier two. So the tier two competition is a far cry from the Premier League. I mean, a lot of things that you do at the tier two level, you can't do at the Premier League level, both in terms of on the field and off the field. Over the last maybe 3 years or so, we've noticed that all the teams that come from tier two end up being are relegated back there when they come to the Premier League. Do you think there is anything that your body can do in terms of to help the tier two teams so that when they come to the Premier League, they are much more prepared and ready for what it involves?
For sure. And again, it's always, you have, I mean, in project management, you have something called scope creep or mission creep. What that simply means is you have to always remember what your existence is and why you are here, what the function is. Um, so, having said that, the function of the PFGL primarily is to market and commercialize um, the different products within the arms of the PFJL. As a part of the tier two teams that are promoted, the approach is to equip them with the necessary skill sets for an incubation period and then allow for them to become their own clubs. Because the core of it is clubs should be standalone entities that are competing against each other. So, a lot of the questions you may have is around how can you help? How can you help? How can you help? Um, our real help is building the capacity internally and providing the foundation so that you as an organization, you develop your own mission, vision, values, objectives, hold yourselves accountable, do the things. You be, you have those things in place. Um, what we believe, and I may be talking, well, what I believe for sure is that clubs are going to be competing on a technical level. Um, that has nothing to do with PFJL, Owen Hill. That has to do with the internal club, right? So, your tactics, your coaching, your philosophy, your methodology, your resources, that has to do with the club. Now, the platform on which you play and the opportunities for exposure and the kinds of value added that we provide are secondary value added to the technical in relation to clubs. Therefore, if clubs get relegated, it's not because they're not commercially viable. It definitely will come down to the technical capabilities, whether it be in the team itself or the coaching ranks or whatever it is. So um, we always facilitate and teams are always given the support. I mean, currently, the two teams that are promoted now are being supported through the PFGL, in terms of their own orientation into the space, whether it be club licensing, any kind of, you know, support information and expertise that they may need. So they're not left in the cold. But the technical side of it, um, that's not really our purview, and we try not to get there.
Yeah, I have a question from Renard Brown. He said several years ago, I
Sure.
remember all Premier League clubs had a U21 that would play games on Fridays. Several players from Sporting Central came through. What's the possibility of a U20 hybrid?
Um, Good question. Um, the age range is the age range may very well be a factor in the conversation. I mean, as he mentioned, U21. and then the suggestion is U20 hybrid. What we're seeing again is that instead of trying to have competitions for clubs, we need to develop talent that can be exported. If we shift our mindset, talent that is exported, then our entire model shifts. Because you don't have to be playing a competition to be developing talent. And also, you may just not have the resources to develop a whole lot of talent. So, what it means is we need younger players to be playing at the higher level more consistently. That's the core of it. The challenge is we need younger players to be playing higher quality games at a rapid pace. Now, that's also an internal club philosophy and mandate and decision. If you are a club that chooses to play players who are above a certain age, that's your philosophy. We are providing you with a platform to play under 20 players if you want. Now, to create a separate league just for under 20 then now means you're probably extending that team, the ecosystem that financially cannot support it, because it now means you're going to have more teams, more competitions, and then more financial resources to match all of those things, which is already stretched. So
Yeah.
it is understanding those things and knowing that, hey, yeah, a couple of years ago there was a U21, but did it actually serve the purpose that it needed to have served? And okay, back then it did. Is it currently the best model that we need going forward? Probably we need to have more of a under 17 league that is paired, because that is at an earlier age you're trying to expose them at a higher level.
Yeah. So I have another question from Jermaine Johnson. He says, can the PFJL mandate clubs to include players' age to play either at a certain number of games or minute to develop them for 2030?
No, the PFJL cannot mandate, because again, our mandate is marketing and commercialization. Now, do we provide the clubs with information that suggests that you need
To
to have under 20? Sure, because every single opportunity we get, we show. Most recently, the Euros, you had a 16 and a 17-year-old dominating. That's a clear, that's not a secret. You don't need a mandate. Spain never need a mandate to play a 16-year-old. They thought it was necessary because he had the necessary skills. So, while we'd love to have
in the Copa as
a
well.
mandate, sorry,
And I'm saying that occurred even in the Copa as well. You had young players
that
playing.
occurs everywhere. It occurs everywhere. But the point I'm making was, two teams. So Copa, Ecuador had a 17-year-old who was dominating, and Spain had a 16-year-old that was dominating in the Euros. The point I'm making is the football average age is going down and down. It's going further and further. People are pushing the boundaries earlier and earlier. Therefore, I think it is incumbent on the coaches and the clubs, the management, the philosophy of the organization to ensure that we provide
I think Owen is frozen. I think Owen is frozen. So just give him a minute. And I think he's having some internet issues. Or maybe someone called him. But I think he's frozen. People, hit the like button, subscribe. Thanks for the persons who are here with us and engaging in the conversation. Manage, yo, big up, bro. Tennessee, Issa Allen, YG 6 Thomas. Yeah, Owen froze and he went out. So hopefully we'll be back. We have a few more questions that we'd like to engage. Unseen Sports, big up, bro, and respect. Yeah, ask him about the pre. Oh, I'm going to ask him about this unseen. I forgot. I'm going to start this message. Yeah, I'll ask him about this as well. If he can, comment on it. Yeah, Upful Jason. Owen Hill played. Owen Hill, they played because of their abilities, not their age. Yeah. Mr. United, he wasn't necessarily saying that they should play because they are young enough. Someone made a comment earlier to say that if the PFJL could mandate the clubs to play younger players for a certain amount of minutes, and he was saying that Spain had a 16-year-old and Ecuador had a 17-year-old, and there was no mandate for them to be playing. That's what he was saying. There was no mandate. The countries or the clubs saw it fit themselves to include those players because that's the way in which the football world is going now. So he wasn't saying that they should play because they are young. He's just saying that there was no mandate from the organization or running the league to say, hey, play some 16-year-old or whatever. He's just saying that these players were good enough and they were given the opportunity. And I think by and large, sometimes you have young players who are good enough in our league, Premier League, that is, and they don't necessarily get the opportunity to go out there and play. So, yeah, that's the point he was making, really. Have a few more questions from Mr. Hill, so hopefully he'll be back with us shortly. In the meantime, people, hit the like button and subscribe. And share your thoughts in the comment section. But yeah, unseen, to your point earlier about the league and information being kept a secret. Yeah, I definitely think that's something that the clubs can improve on. Definitely think that's something the clubs can improve on in terms of putting information out, help to get the fans more engaged with the players who are coming in and stuff like that. So I definitely think that's something that the clubs can improve on. Even outside of the PFJL. So yeah. So when Mr. Hill is back, hopefully I'll ask him about that. Renata is saying you have to take context and culture in mind. Spain and these countries have proper structure in place to help those players develop. Players I guess you're saying players who are good enough will play JPL, but what about others? Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So you're saying the elite players will get a chance to play in the JPL, but there are some players who are not elite at this time, and maybe that league could help them to improve and to be better, probably in a year or two. I get what you're saying, but I think what Owen is saying though is that, he's saying that that's not necessarily the mandate of the PFJL, and I guess probably that's something that the JFF would have to institute from their level. I think that would fall under the remit of the technical committee. They would be the ones who are able to say, hey, do this or not. But yeah, I don't think that would fall under the remit because, as I said, the PFJL is a body, is made up of directors from each of the 14 Premier League clubs. And then they have the CEO. Well, they have two CEOs now. They have sponsorship and execution manager. I think they have an operations manager, and then they have a chairman. But by and large, the body of the PFJL is made up from representatives from each of the 14 Premier League clubs. So I don't think that would be something that they have purview over. That's more likely the JFF and the technical committee. Jason saying, so the mandate of the PFJL, okay, is to market the league and not dictate to the clubs and on who to play. We have gradually seen more players from other Caribbean islands joining clubs, which is good. Yeah. I think between players, Mobe had players from Brazil and the Caribbean. Yeah, so those clubs, I said Portmore already. Yeah, so there are quite a few clubs who have Caribbean influence in terms of players. But with the continued influx of players, will a cap/quota be in place enable locals to develop? Currently, Jason, I think you can only register 6 Caribbean nationals or 7. I think that's a number that's there. I think that's a number that's there. You can only have 6 or 7 Caribbean nationals in a squad. Playing devil's advocate here. Jason, easy, brother. Right now they're saying PFJL just played a pilot team tournament, so how is it not in their interest? Well, yeah, Renata, but he was referring to your point of having a under 20 or under 21 because he's saying, based on my understanding, that if a player is at age 21, they should be playing in the league or be looking to leave. And so he's saying that at that age, really and truly should be at the level. So to play a competition to facilitate development, or I guess at that age, probably wouldn't be the best. So I guess that's why he's saying under 17, which would be a much earlier age, so that when they come to the Premier League, they are ready to participate and to take it by storm. They would have already attained a level of development by age 17. And so they wouldn't necessarily need a league for development. They'll just come and play in the Premier League. So I think that's what he's saying. Jason's saying, so if I'm a club owner and I want to reinforce my club with more than 7, I'll be forced to comply. Yeah, Jason. But that not unique to Jamaica though. Everywhere in the world where you go, you have quota and foreign players, or you have a certain amount of locals that they must have. I don't know if that rule extends to other nationalities. I probably would have to check, but I know that you can only have, I think you can only have 7 Caribbean nationals, or maybe foreign nationals. Stand corrected. Are there fines attributed with this measure? What do you mean, Jason? Like, if you have more, if you'll be fined, that's what you're asking, or not? Yeah, that's what they're asking. I'm not sure. So in England, they have had homegrown rule, but look at all the clubs now. Yes, I'm saying they probably still have the homegrown rule in England, which says you must have X amount of England nationals in your squad. So I think it's similar to what exists here. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, there must be some consequence if you break a rule. Must be some consequence if you break a rule. Oh, people. So last night I was on Management Show, I Am Sure Sports. We were talking about the PFJL and the whole how the league was operating at a loss and stuff like that. And management was asking the question about if who makes the decisions in terms of the payment of bills from a PFJL perspective. My understanding at the time was that I know the PFJL has a finance committee who are the ones who do the payments, but I was contacted and corrected by a member of said committee this morning and informed or advised that even although the finance committee is there, the finance committee is the one that the persons, some of them are signatories on the account of the PFJL. So it is the CEO and the chairman and those persons of the PFJL that handles operations, and the finance committee just approve payments once the payments are legitimate. So, for example, if let's say the PFJL is hosting a game and them acquire a sound system, just an example, soundman come, submit an invoice, and say I provide sound services with $5. and that invoice is added, is uploaded to some system, and the signatories of the account go in and look at the invoice, and them say, yes, this is a legitimate invoice, and so them approve payment once the funds is there for them to do that. So I must apologize to the members of the committee because I think based on what I explained, it would suggest that they were the ones in charge of the whole operations and payment, but they are just the body that signs off or approve payments when a bill is there for work that is done. So I think the three signatories on the account were Rudolph Speed, Peter Higgins, and Donovan White. So if I apologize if what I said, caused any ill feelings or anything of the sort. And it was a misunderstanding on my part in terms of how the committee operates. But like I said, I had a conversation with someone from the committee, and I was made aware that they don't handle the day-to-day operations, so they just approve payments based on invoices that are submitted. And the operation is done by the PFJL staff, headed by the CEO. I think the PFJL has 2 CEOs and 1 chairman. So chairman is Mr. Williams, Mr. Chris Williams, and the CEO is Mr. Owen Hill, and another CEO, I think his name is Kemoy. I don't remember his last name now, but he's the other CEO. Another Brown said, clubs are lazy. It shouldn't be just the PFJL to market the league. I don't know if I agree with that 100%, but like I said, remember the PFJL is made up of the clubs. The directorship of the PFJL is made up of all the representatives from all 14 Premier League clubs within that season. Of course, you have relegation. So when one team is 2 teams are relegated, then 2 new members are added and they start the mandate for the new season. If the PFJL didn't do a good job in terms of the CEOs and stuff, then the board will act. Yes, Renardo. Moy Burke is the other CEO of the PFJL. So that company has 2 CEOs, 14 directors, a chairman, and 2 other staff members who are full-time staff. One is in charge of sponsorship. I think the other is in charge of operations. Jason says, so in order for local clubs to grow exponentially, I think you're saying here, shouldn't the owners be on the clubs to seek additional monies / sponsorship in order for said clubs to grow and not solely depend on the PFJL? Yeah, I agree. I think the clubs should do more to obtain sponsorship, but I think the remit of the PFJL, based on how they are set up, is almost like is similar to like a collective bargaining agency where they are the ones that seek sponsorship on behalf of all the clubs. Because what happens is when the sponsorship comes in, the money goes into a pool, and then it's shared up amongst the clubs in an equitable way. So yeah. So if you notice, at a point in some seasons, there were some clubs that didn't have on any logo on their jersey, but it doesn't mean that they benefited less financially from the money that comes into the pool from the other sponsors. I think that's probably a fair way to sort it out. So I'm going to try and contact Mr. Hill and see if he'll be back with us. Okay, not getting Mr. Hill. I don't know. I think he's having some internet issues. But people, in the meantime, there's going to be a goalkeeping clinic that's going to be held. Let me give you the information for that. I played it earlier. I'm going to play it again. So national goalkeeper coach Andrew Sewell will be having a goalkeeping clinic. Yeah, big up Drew Fortis. So national goalkeeper coach Andrew Sewell will be having a goalkeeping clinic training camp that will be held from August 7 to 9, starting 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. daily. Cost is 15,000 Jamaican dollars for the entire camp, and it will be held at the Alpha Institute. That's on South Camp Road, just across from Stewart's Auto. Register at www.safehandsgk.com. So people, check it out. Goalkeeping clinic. Last year had a very successful staging. There were even some female goalkeepers who were there. So I definitely don't want to miss out on this one. A lot of, astute goalkeeper coaches will be present. All goalkeeper coaches, 3 of the goalkeeper coaches who will be leading the sessions are all involved in the national program or have been involved in the national program at some stage. Coach Sewell recently went on a trip with the females team. He was the coach of the under-20 team with Conor Boyce Clark and those players. Coach Scarlett is with the under-17, and Coach Beckford recently traveled with the academy team that went to Sweden. They went to Sweden for a competition. So yeah. So definitely people you want to check that out. That is going to be a good one. So remember, August 7th to 9th. If you need more information, you can contact Safe Hands. They're on Instagram. So just type in Safe Hands GK. They're on Instagram. Definitely can check them out. And see. I'm trying to get Mr. Hill though, but not successful at this point. Not sure what's going on. I'm gonna try again. So it's going straight to the voicemail. I'm not sure. Maybe he has some phone issues. So Jampiel fan says, if Owen Hill returns, see if it can get an update on the home grounds of Malines, Tivoli, and if they're ready for this season. Well, I know Malines is doing some work on their field. Currently putting in some irrigation system there. I'm not sure if that will be ready for the start of the Premier League season, but we'll see. I mean, given the Premier League season is set to start in September, which is earlier than the norm for the last 2 seasons, so I don't know. But yeah, I tried to call him a while ago on regular call, but he went straight to voicemail. I think he's having some issues. I'm not sure what's going on there. But probably we'll have to do a part 2. He'll get back to us. Probably have to do a part 2. Leader not implementing his scouting course. Jason. But I spoke to Mr. Speed. He said that one of the scouts has done some scouting courses, which is Barry, I think his name is. But yeah, that would be good. I think the JFF could do well in implementing a scouting course, so you can have more people on board who want to be scouts. So definitely would not be a bad idea. So yeah, people, we're on the hour mark now, so we're gonna call it a night. Hopefully we can get Mr. Hill back and have an update on some of the issues and the things going on. I really wanted to talk to him about the massive expenditure that happened with the JPL finals, where they said that the clubs, that the business operators that are lost after having seen about 20,000 people inside the National Stadium. I think that is something that I would want to ask him about. But hopefully we'll have another chat another time to get that started. And as I said, people, remember, check out Stefan's goalkeeping camp, August 79, Alpha Institute. For more information, just reach out to Stefan's GK on Instagram, or if anything, people can always reach out to me and I'll put you through. Don't want to miss out on this opportunity. A lot of good goalkeeper coaches are going to be there, and definitely it's going to be a successful camp. JPL transfers, Nicholas Nelson from Dunby Hole into Mount Pleasant, Tariq Siminis back on the island from Circle Bruges at Mount Pleasant. Coaching changes, Leonard Hyde no longer at Dunby Hole. Word on the street is that he's going to be replaced by Philip Williams. Incidentally, when Lenny Hyde left Portmore a few years ago, Philip Williams replaced him. Word is that Linval Dixon is no longer the coach up there. Sean Fraser resigned as the assistant coach of Harborview, who appointed Jason Bujo Henry as their head coach for this Premier League season. So interesting times. Word also that Mount Pleasant would have released upwards of 15 players from their last Premier League squad. So I'm sure the clubs are champing at the bit to pick up a player that was at Mount Pleasant. I saw one player that was at Mount Pleasant who is training back with Arnett Gardens now, who will be playing in the Caribbean Club Shield to qualify for a place in the CONCACAF Caribbean Club Championship. So all the best to Arnett Gardens. I think they'll go to a Caribbean island to play that competition. I'll probably get some more information and come back and do a video. Mount Pleasant, they defeated Charlton Athletic U21 2-0 a few days ago in a preseason practice game. Very good to see a team from England coming to Jamaica for preseason. As you all know, Charlton and Mount Pleasant have an agreement, to having exchange of players and doing preseason tours and camps. The last season, Devontae Campbell went to Charlton for 2 weeks. I think the experience really helped him because when he came back, he was on fire in the JPL. So, yeah, that's something to look forward to. But right now, it's just transfers for the clubs who are looking to participate in the CONCACAF competitions. Clubs are doing their club licensing applications, looking to start pre-season and stuff. So, definitely. If the two Trinidad to bigger players are returning to Mount Pleasant, I don't have any word that they aren't. I'm assuming they would. I don't know why they wouldn't. Aubrey didn't get a lot of playing time last year, but James got some minutes, especially towards the playoff round. So yeah, I don't know. I don't see any reason why he shouldn't be there. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be there, bro. All things being equal, they should. So let's wait and see what happens there. In terms of the JPL, I think the JPL clubs need to do a better job of giving off information about their clubs, especially in the preseason. That's one way in which the clubs can engage fans, and generate interest throughout the season. Make the people be more involved and have a better feel of, the players who are coming and stuff like that. I think that's definitely something that the clubs could look to invest in going forward. Definitely. Jeremy, B license, CONCACAF, B as in boy. Premier League clubs are expected to have a B license. Premier League head coaches And I don't know if it's a requirement for the assistant, but you want assistant to have anywhere between a C and a D license, that would be good. But I think now the mandate is that all head coaches must have a B. B as in boy, contact of B license. So yeah. Which is interesting because I heard that the coach at Harborview was appointed doesn't have to be licensed. That's what I heard. I'm not sure how that is possible. But I know that Sean Fraser was a part of the last cohort of coaches that were doing the B license. But yeah. So that's the requirement, Jeremy, that all coaches must have a B license. Whether or not that's something that's going to be enforced is yet to be seen. But definitely that's what they're saying. Okay, so Jean-Pierre Fan says he has a B license. Okay, so I was missing part. He has a B license. Okay, good. Good. But I think that's something that should be enforced by the JFF. I mean, if we want the league and the players to be better, we have to hold the clubs accountable and ensure that they have qualified coaches coaching the players, not just anybody who said them is a coach and have a whistle. Yeah, I have a video, you know. I have a video from another YouTuber, you know, talk about the coaches there. And then I got inserted, you know. Should be interesting, but yeah, people looking forward to what lies ahead for the JPL. Definitely gonna be some interesting times in terms of the transfers and stuff. But people, thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come and be a part of the platform and the conversation. Please remember to hit the like button, subscribe, and share the video with a friend. Later this week, did Owen mention? No, I never get a chance to get around to that Jean-Pierre. Did you get a chance, bro? I was gonna get to that. So definitely people, this week, so on Friday, I should be having an interview with Mr. Simon Preston. Definitely, I should have had it last Friday. But due to reasons beyond my control, it wasn't able to happen. But definitely this Friday, that interview will be available, will be live. So I'll be having a conversation with Mr. Simon Preston. He's going to be sharing his story about, you know, his journey in the football industry, in media and stuff like that. So yeah, man, definitely, bro. Part 2, definitely. Me know when him thinks about him might give me a link there. And also I have another interview scheduled. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do that interview on Saturday or Sunday, but I'm gonna do an interview with the St. Catherine Football Association. Will be having their elections in August. The main candidates are Mrs. Elaine Walker Brown, JFF Vice President, and owner of McKay New Raiders, Mr. Jason McKay, or Mr. Jason Mackay. All things being equal, I'm hoping I can interview both of them on this platform for them to come and share the plans that they have for football in St. Catherine. But I've spoken to one of the candidates already, and they said they have no issue coming on. It's just for us to set up a time. So definitely I'm going to have one of the candidates. I'd like to have both of them, not on the same platform, but on separate occasions to come and talk about their campaign and, you know, the plans they have for the parish and how they can improve football in the parish, make it more viable, make it better. So definitely people stay tuned. I hope to have one of them before the week ends. Like I said, one of them was already confirmed. It's just for us to work out the details of the time and those stuff. But that's definitely something to look forward to. Should be a very interesting discussion. So like I said, the two I don't know if there are other candidates, but I know that the two main candidates are Jason McKay, of the owner of McKay New Raiders, who play in the St. Catherine competition, and Mrs. Elaine Walker Brown, who is the current president and the JFF vice president. Mr. McKay and his team were kicked out of the St. Catherine Major League due to some registration issues, and I think it's against that background, or maybe you could say that's a straw that brought the cameras back as to why he decided to launch his campaign for presidency in the parish. Will you be eventually branching out into different sport interviews like Jamaica need to answer some? Yeah, bro. Definitely, brother. Definitely. I reached out to some cricketers already, but I don't know, they're probably busy. But definitely, I think my first cricket interview is going to be a smasher. Hopefully, I can get a well-known cricketer to come on the platform for my first cricket interview. Also, in the month of August, I should be interviewing a FIFA referee. Yeah, people, I'm going to interview a FIFA referee, correct FIFA referee as well. So all of the questions about VAR and stuff, yeah, I'm going to have a FIFA referee on the panel, on the show, sorry, to have a discussion with him. Just to share about their journey into the football industry and how they became a referee and what it's like, and just basic stuff like that. Nothing too controversial and out of the norm. So definitely, so people, like I said, hour and 20 minutes. Yeah, man, Jean-Pierre fan, man. Much appreciated, brother. Much appreciated. And as I said, bro, may have to link up and do some work. I got message up on Instagram and get your number. Because I definitely want to do some extensive coverage of the JPL too. I think the more coverage the JPL gets, the better it will be for players to be exposed and go overseas. And certainly force the clubs and the players to improve the standard of play and how they operate. So I definitely I'm going to try my very best to give some coverage to the JPL as a person who used to be a member of a club in the JPL. I definitely know that the more exposure the league gets, better for the players, better for the clubs. Definitely going to make sure that I give some focus to that. And like I said, it's the plan to have on past players, sporting officials, coaches, just to come on the platform and just to share their story from their perspective. You see it? So that's the plan, people. Thank you, guys, and until next time, please, people, have a look again at the information regarding the goalkeeping clinic camp. August 7 to 9 at the Alpha Institute Safe Hands Goalkeeping Camp. Be sure to check it out. Until then, peace out.